A young Ukrainian woman lies on train tracks in Germany. Tragic end. The man accused of pushing her there was supposed to be deported 2 years ago. But here's the twist. The system that was meant to protect Europeans failed catastrophically. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, former analyst for state-run media who chose truth over propaganda. Now I expose what mainstream outlets won't tell you. Today we're diving into Germany's deportation disaster and Europe's hypocritical stance on Israel. You won't believe how these stories connect, because when institutions fail, innocent people pay the price. If you're tired of sugar-coated news, smash that like button. Subscribe for real analysis, not corporate spin. Maybe consider supporting independent journalism. We need voices that can't be bought, because tomorrow the news could change everything. Let me paint you the full picture of what happened in Germany. August 11th, Friedland train station, Lower Saxony. A 31-year-old Iraqi asylum seeker named Mohammed allegedly pushed a young Ukrainian woman under a freight train. She was just trying to escape war, ended up tragic victim of bureaucratic failure. Here's where it gets even worse. This man arrived in Germany in 2022, asylum rejected, deportation order issued to Lithuania under Dublin regulations. But legal battles, court delays, bureaucratic incompetence kept him in the country. You see the pattern, right? Spring 2024, he ignored immigration office summons. Summer, arrested for unpaid fines. Court rejected deportation due to paperwork errors. The system completely broke down. Lower Saxony's interior minister called it systemic failure. And now listen carefully. His DNA was found on the victim's shoulder. This wasn't accident. This was violent act by someone who should have been long gone. Just imagine that for a second. A woman flees war in Ukraine seeking safety in Germany. Instead, she encounters someone the system failed to remove. The Irish asylum seeker had paranoid schizophrenia, was placed in psychiatric hospital after the incident. Mental illness doesn't excuse violent action, but it highlights another failure. Why was someone with serious mental health issues left unsupervised in the community? The Dublin regulations are supposed to work, send asylum seekers back to first country of entry. Reality check. They're completely broken. In 2024, Germany made 75,000 transfer requests. Only 5,740 actually happened. Italy stopped accepting returns. Greece faces legal challenges. Bureaucracy creates endless delays. What do you think? Comment below. Are we witnessing the collapse of European asylum policy? Because this case shows what happens when good intentions meet incompetent execution. But if you think this is bad, wait until you hear what's happening with Europe's approach to Israel. Now let's talk about Europe's latest moral theater performance. The European Commission wants to suspend Israel from part of Horizon Europe research program over Gaza situation. Sounds tough, right? Wrong. This is virtue signaling at its finest. They're targeting startup grants, blocking Israeli companies from European Innovation Council funding. We're talking about 200 million euros, pocket change compared to billions in trade. And now listen carefully. Germany and Italy are blocking even this symbolic gesture. Foreign Minister Johann Wadeful said it would have no real impact on Israel's military choices. He's absolutely right, but for wrong reasons. You won't believe this. Germany maintains special responsibility for Israel, buys Arrow missile defense systems worth billions. So they criticize meaningless research sanctions while continuing arms deals. The hypocrisy is staggering. Meanwhile, countries like Spain, Netherlands, Ireland push for stronger measures. Here's where it gets even worse. Former EU diplomat Josep Borrell called the Horizon suspension a bad joke. His words, not mine. 8 EU countries support the measure, but Germany holds all the cards. Without German support, qualified majority impossible. Just imagine that for a second. Europe wants to look tough on human rights, but can't even agree on research funding restrictions. What about trade sanctions, arms embargoes, real diplomatic pressure? Nothing. The EU signed aid agreement with Israel promising 160 daily aid trucks to Gaza. Most commitments unfulfilled. But European leaders use this as excuse to avoid real action. Belgium, Netherlands imposed travel bans on Israeli ministers, individual member states showing more backbone than Brussels bureaucrats. Are we witnessing complete collapse of European moral authority? Because when your strongest response to humanitarian crisis is academic program suspension, you've lost all credibility. What do you think? Comment below if you believe Europe needs real leadership. These stories aren't separate, they're symptoms of the same disease. European institutions making promises they can't keep, creating policies they won't enforce. German deportation system fails. Innocent Ukrainian woman loses life. European sanctions regime fails. Humanitarian crisis continues. The pattern is crystal clear. Brussels bureaucrats love grand statements but lack courage for meaningful action. When systems fail, real people suffer. That Iraqi asylum seeker should have been deported. Maybe that woman would be alive. When European leaders choose symbolism over substance, crises escalate. This is why we need independent voices, why mainstream media won't tell whole story. They're invested in maintaining illusions about European competence, but reality bites back hard. Subscribe if you want unvarnished truth, not diplomatic doublespeak. Hit that notification bell. We're living through a historical moment when institutional credibility collapses. Support independent journalism. We can't rely on state funding or corporate sponsors, because tomorrow brings new revelations about European failures.